It's such a vast field, therapy nowadays. A confounding question. It confounds me anyway. What am I doing?
Yeah.
I often think it's insane to be a therapist.
I'm paying attention to the process and the interaction that's both of us. So I have to be bringing an inner awareness and attention for myself in order to provide a climate in which the client can heal themselves. It's another way of me trying to define a healing presence.
Yes. Thank you.
In all my, go ahead. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
that's good. I just want that little kiss. Great. So there was a feeling that you said, well, I know something about what it is. You know, it's this presence, this climate that's both of us. Did anybody else have something? Either something like, oh, yes, what is it? Or, oh, it's this. That you
I had what came for me was putting in these two words for me. So there's that kind of what does it mean to be a therapist? And that's sort of like a generic kind of thing. And I wanted those two words to be put in there because each of us who are therapists or do things therapeutically, whether in that context or not, we're the ones who show up. So it's, what is it? We put our own fingerprints on it. So, what is it for me?
Of what am I paid for?
Mhm.
And I have a feeling that we are not paid for attention. That is love itself for me. But if we are paid, it's for time, that we have to use our time for make living or not, or we can afford not being paid for this time. Something like that came.
Like that.
I think Jenlin grapples with that too in the piece you sent us in the small steps, where he's saying, I'm not the brightest, shiniest, best informed person in the world. In fact, I'm shy and not all that enlightened. And if the client looks close enough, they may even see that. But there's something about keeping somebody company and being present with them in a way that I think people who come to us have probably not experienced much in their life due to whatever neglect and trauma and difficulty that has stifled them. So to be present in the way that he talks about really helps somebody merge into their own beingness. And I that's, for me, that's what being a therapist is largely. And focusing has really helped me get a handle on that.
What comes to me as we're talking is in the Christian sacred text, when the word for the third part of the Trinity, the Holy Spirit, is introduced, the original Aramaic for that term was one called alongside to help. And that's always been my inner drive. And interesting, the to help, that infinitive, to help, it doesn't mean I'm called to help. It means they come to me because they want help. And so there's not some big fancy thing about, oh, I'm a helper. It's, no, I'm here with someone who's coming because they need help. And I can just be with them in that need. I've been called alongside of them. And that's so focusing, isn't it? To be with, to keep company.
Let me try to answer the question for me. And I love that that Steve made it the question of what is it for me to be a therapist? I think for me, it is entering into what Jean calls the big therapy process. I'm going to use the word there's something sacred. And what I mean by sacred is a word that I like, but some people might hate. The word sacred means there's a mystery, a specialness. There's something that is so large about the big therapy process. And I think of the big therapy process as the natural evolution of everything, what Jean calls the carrying forward energy. And to be in the process where that development, that evolution, that growth, that opening is happening, and to be part of it is what I think of as being a therapist. The one element is to be engaged in and experience these small steps of change, the developmental process in which you are in the flow of something that's opening, something that's coming alive, something that that shifts and changes, and we can feel it in our bodies. The big therapy process is a process where these moments of becoming are sort of held up in some kind of way. They're facilitated, they're sought for, they're welcomed, they're intended, they're nurtured, and our attention is on that. Can we bring that development, that carrying forward? So the first element is the element of being part of a developmental process that's happening in the moment, that Jean points out happens in these small steps of change and opening, and to be aware of the process, to enter into the process. The second element that I'm going to talk about more next week is the element that traditionally would be called transference. Like, what does that word mean? I want that word to mean the awareness in this big process that the accompanier, the facilitator, the one who is there with you, is representing much more than that person. The helper is representing the universe, representing the parent, representing maybe the one that hurt you, the betrayer, maybe representing all kinds of things. And for me, that is a big difference between a focusing helper or focusing professional and a therapist. That both are entering into this big process of development and change. And I'm hoping that all of us aspire for that, and Jean is going to help us to understand that process better that we're entering into. The second element of being a representative, of being willing to take on all the stuff that the person needs you to take on and to represent for them. That's the element that I think makes the difference between focusing professional, a helper, or all kinds of focusing helpers, and someone that is saying, I'm up for being a therapist. and I'll take on the relationship, really attending to the relationship.
Thinking, where do you put your understanding of the patient within a psychoanalytic historical sense while you're doing your little steps? Where are you putting diagnosis, your formulation of the person, the history, all that, the other side of it, as you were?
Yeah, the answer to that, I'm gonna ask us to read from Jean, from the paper. I sent you some quotes, and I wanted us to read this and then see if the answer comes clearer to you without my even saying it. Okay?
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Would everybody play with us here? Liz's question is, well, what about diagnosis? What about all of those psychoanalytic frameworks? Where do I put them?
When I sit down with someone, I take my troubles and feelings and I put them over here on one side, close, because I might need them. I might want to go in there and see something. And I take all the things that I have learned, client-centered therapy, reflection, focusing, gestalt, psychoanalytic concepts, and everything else. I wish I had even more. And I put them over here on my other side, close. Then I am just here with my eyes. And there is this other being.
I want to say that where diagnosis is, it's somewhere between here that I put close, and what I know about theory and concept that I put close on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to say that all that I learned from psychoanalysis and from other traditions that I study, that I have studied, and that and everything else is right there informing me and with me. But I don't want that to come between me and the client, because the answer to the question of what does it mean to me to be a therapist, it means to be the interaction, to embody the interaction, to call upon the interaction that's going to make this carrying forward. And I do that by being right there, and that all the theory that I've studied and especially digested is right with me, helping me. But I'm not going to pull it out and have it somehow making a barrier between me and the immediate experience of the other. And my availability. I love when Jean says, if the client looks, the client can see that I'm this shaky little being. They may not look. The transference may be that the client needs to idealize me. Yes. So then I'm going to represent the ideal, and the person isn't going to see the shaky little being. We're in contact with the real other person and and available as a real self. So what does it mean to be this self, this one that that can embody the big therapy process, that can be the accompanier in these small steps of opening and change? People say you have to be present, but what does that mean to be present? The interactional climate, I think my way of expressing it would be that being present is a certain kind of attitude, And that's what Carl Rogers was trying to convey when he said genuineness, unconditional regard, and empathy. That attitude, what is an attitude? For me, an attitude is something more in our control than a feeling. A feeling just comes. An attitude we can take. You can call upon an attitude or take an attitude. An attitude of, and Steve is going to find it, I think. Were you going to find a definition, Steve? No, you're going to just write it down. Okay. And an attitude, because it would be good to find a definition there, but an attitude is an amalgam of feelings, thoughts, anticipations, and intentions. It's a way of being, a way of experiencing. It's a lens. It's a perspective. Do all of those words conjure up for you what an attitude is? An attitude of surrender. Liz would like to quote Immanuel Kant, I'm sure, about surrender. An attitude of expectancy. Donald Stern would say courting surprise. An attitude of being there. An attitude of not protecting. There's one place in the quotes, and I'm not going to go back to them because we've lost a lot of time here, but there's one place in those quotes where Jean says, don't use reflecting and focusing and any other thing that you know as a shield. You know, I'm on this side and I'll just throw back to you anything you said. I'm safe over here. Use the things that you know that way. The attitude is an attitude of I'm here. Some people would say in service, but not in service to the other person so much as in service to a big process that you are benefiting from as the therapist. So when I am present, I'm being this interaction, bringing this attitude of expectancy. I'm the one who's growing also because I'm not a separate person. This is very, very hard for us to get, that the growth happens for both of us. The aliveness happens for both of us. Now, one of the things about this attitude that enables me to be present is that I am geared toward hearkening, waiting on pins and needles for the next little step of something coming, like, oh, it's not this, it's this, or, oh, I didn't like it when you said that, or, oh, just now I went blank. All of those things are like, something is here now that's touching in to this process that's implicit, this underneath place where the growth happens. And this consciousness of it, this awareness of it, makes me able to recognize it when it comes. And that's a big thing that I want you to get from this course. Maybe if you get nothing else.
Can you say it again in case we didn't
the
quite get it?
I want you to get from this course is the kind of attitude or presence that makes you aware of recognizing the tiny steps of opening, so they don't just go. And if you're not looking for them, they're just washed away with all the other words. A little shift of energy, a pause. These are the things Jean is helping us with. There are certain things that Jean gives us to help us with this presence, certain kind of guidelines. One of them is we know so well about putting nothing between, that we've talked about. Maximum contact and minimum intrusion. And intrusion could be intrusion of focusing for some people. The primacy of human presence, he talks about, just that you are present as a human with another human. And that's part of that attitude. I'm a human here with you. And it's something very special to be a human. You know, there's a lot in that, what it means to be a human. And the whole idea of what it means to keep something company. He says you don't push and you don't run away, but what do? You keep it company. We're going to spend this whole year learning about what it means to be the human that keeps something company. And all of that, I think, is in the attitude of being on this journey with someone. I want to say that sometimes therapy can be drudgery to me. I think we read the poem To Be of Use last time, and somebody, I don't remember who, said, oh, she's just celebrating drudgery. And I smile out of that. Sometimes hearing the same thing over and over, or we have to go through the ritual of complaint before we get to the blah, blah, or whatever it is, can feel like for a mother, like maybe changing diapers is. You know, it's not all glorious. And, you know, being a mother or being a grandparent, as Steve is very fond of, is also an amazing, miraculous privilege, because we're getting to be actually part of an evolutionary process, engaged with it, and it's happening for us as well as the client, and we can see the how it's happening in the small steps to the us. So I want to say that the small steps of change are small steps of talking and then something coming. Often there'll be a silence, and finding words for something, right? Responding, welcoming, those kinds of steps. And we learn them when we learn how to facilitate focusing. We learn a lot about small steps. But the other side of it is that the small steps of building the us are intrinsically interwoven with that. It is your eyes. It is the way you're sitting. It is your tone when you're saying something. That is the small steps of building the us. Is catching something when it's gone wrong or when the person is puzzled. And it's welcoming the being corrected. It's welcoming the way in which we're falling short, and then we can say, oh, we fell off there. Let's see what happened. Or I know that wasn't a very good thing to hear for you, right? We're picking up on that. Those small steps of building the us are integrally connected to the small steps of process that we learn in facilitating focus